Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Why Everyone Plays. Glad to see that so many of you enjoyed the first installment on Rob, and so I decided let's not waste any more time and get right into making the next episode of the series. As one of the premier archetypes within Smash, there's no shortage of representation for sword fighters given there's almost 20 of them in Ultimate's roster. With that said, today's episode will feature the most popular sword fighter in the game before Pyra and Mithra came out. Let's talk about Roy. The Fire Emblem series is well known in Smash Bros, dating all the way back to Melee with the release of Marth and Roy, who at the time were virtual unknowns considering the first Fire Emblem game wasn't released worldwide until after Melee came out. Even so, Roy and Marth were the first true sword fighters to join Smash, and from Melee to Brawl to Smash 4 to Ultimate, more and more would soon follow, with many of them originating from Fire Emblem as well, much to the pleasure and displeasure of the community who were divided on the notion that Fire Emblem had too many seats in the Hall of Smash. Regardless of your stance on the subject, Fire Emblem has become a beloved franchise for many after having entered the public consciousness over the past decade, and its characters have found great success in the competitive scene for longer than that. Roy, on the other hand, was frequently overshadowed by his rival counterpart Marth, who saw great results in the previous entries. Fortunately for him, the tables have turned with the inclusion of Ultimate. Roy is one of the game's most recognizable fighters ever since release, and even as new characters entered the scene, for better or worse, Roy's presence held steady, attesting to how viable and effective he is as a character. The answers may seem apparent given that there's plenty of video evidence to prove it, but I still think it's worth diving into the meat and potatoes of why his representation spans not just the top level, but also mid to high level play. If there are two things Roy is well known for, it's that he's a swordy and he hits like a truck. But that can be used to describe other characters too, so why is he any different? What could very well be the most prominent reason why Roy is so popular in this game is the extent of his offensive pressure, enough to be considered one of the best in overall capacity and capability. For starters, thanks to the environment set forth by the systematic changes from Smash 4 to Ultimate, the bulk of all meaningful interactions take place in the air, whether in the form of air-to-air or air-to-ground engagements, while ground-to-ground combat is predicated on three scenarios for non-projectile users: burst options, juggling, and spacing. As stated earlier, Roy's greatest strength is his kill pressure, far more than what is expected from his weight class, to the point where he can even be comparable to the power of heavyweights like Bowser and Ganondorf while maintaining the same properties of a middleweight fighter. Naturally, this means if he were to contend with most of the cast in ground-to-ground combat, the number of burst options within his arsenal make him incredibly efficient at closing out stocks, not to mention the various ways he can set up those burst options or simply throw them out if put in a position to do so. Grounded kill options are usually few and far between for the majority of high and top tiers. Any semblance of kill pressure is either exclusively locked to smash attacks, which for obvious reasons are not reliable, or require the opponent to be at unreasonably high percents to where anything would kill them at that point. For example, let's look at Roy's forward tilt versus Corrin's. I'm not saying Corrin's a top tier, it's just for comparison. They share very similar frame data with each other, a startup of frame 8, comparable effective range if we were to include the sour spot as well, only slightly beaten out by Corrin, and roughly equal safety on shield. But Roy's F-tilt is significantly more threatening, the second most powerful forward tilt in the game actually. This property applies to virtually everything within Roy's moveset. All of his aerials with the exception of down air are fast and safe enough to match close quarters fighters while being substantially more dangerous individually. This is further emphasized by the fact that he's once again a sword fighter, thus granting him all the privileges of a sword fighter. The question of whether or not his effective range would even qualify him as a swordie is left up to interpretation in light of the majority of his kit possessing a sweet spot up close and a sour spot from afar. But I would argue that's not enough to invalidate any of the benefits. Even if we were to humor the notion, there are instances where landing the sour spot is actually a good thing, as it leads into high percent combos and kill confirms that would otherwise be impossible if landing the sweet spot. That, and lest you forget, landing hits on your opponent is never a bad thing, no matter how minuscule. Certainly better than getting hit yourself. Any range is better than no range, something that a lot of fast characters tend to struggle with. If you have long range attacks, they're usually slow, such as the likes of Sephiroth, Shulk, and Ike. If you have really fast attacks, they're usually stubby, displayed by Sheik, Pikachu, and Mario. Additionally, fast characters have low kill power overall, giving them less access to readily available kill options that aren't risky to use. Roy possesses an amazing combination of speed, mobility, power, and range that the only thing keeping him remotely fair is that he has a sour spot. In the early days of Ultimate, Chrom was hotly debated as the #1 character for essentially being Roy with no sour spot. Of course, his recovery, or rather lack thereof, became too exploitable of a weakness. If Chrom instead had Roy's Blazer instead of Soaring Slash, then it wouldn't be too big of a stretch to say Chrom would have been the definitive best character in the game, even with the advent of Fighters Pass 2. But back to the main topic. If we go by attack metrics alone, Roy is the most overtuned sword fighter among the roster. He has the same kill power as Ike and Sephiroth with the speed of Lucina and Mithra and the ground and air mobility of Cloud. That's not to say he has no flaws, but in terms of strengths, Roy is probably the best overall sword fighter in the game. I'd go so far as to say he would even eclipse Mithra if the latter wasn't able to switch to Pyra. Continuing on with that, something that lends credence to Roy's overall power is that everything in his moveset has a purpose. If it doesn't outright kill, it puts his target into a situation where the next attack most certainly will. Pragmatically, he has no bad moves. His jab, especially in tandem with his own aerials, is considered to be one of the best jabs of all time, adds at least to pretty much every other move in his kit at varying percentages, with the most infamous one being jab into reverse back air, a simple 2-part combo that can kill as early as 80% near the ledge. Forward tilt and up tilt are both incredibly fast burst options with smash attack levels of kill power. Initially, down tilt may seem innocuous, but it's remarkably safe on shield even when sour spotted, and can set up tech chases, which Roy excels at thanks to how fast his movement and attacks are. You can see that echoed throughout his aerials too. At low percents, they're able to combo several times for easy percents, most notably neutral, forward, and up air, which can string into each other. At high percents, all 5 of them are viable kill options. Neutral air can kill, forward air can kill, back air, up air, down air. While sword fighters in general have good knockback scaling in all of their moves, it's rare to see them kill this early. If that wasn't enough, his specials express his sheer power and speed as well. Flare Blade in my opinion has the least amount of practical use, but its 2-framing potential and low end lag gives it enough situational applications. Double Edge Dance is notorious for its ridiculous KO potential, with the final hit of the neutral variant famously overshadowing Cloud's limit cross-slashing KO potential despite being a regular move that Roy can spam as much as he wants. Since it's a multi-input attack, it's also fantastic for covering spot dodges or even rolls. Blazer may not have the farthest distance coverage, but it makes up for that by being a very strong attack on its own, doing well over 20% when grounded, a frame 9 startup and super armor from frames 4 through 10, letting him punch through follow-up attacks as an added shield option. Also, like everything else, it can kill at high percents, so if push comes to shove, you have an added shield kill option, which not many characters can say they have. I know counter is regarded by many to be overrated and really only used in casual or low-level play due to how punishable it is if your opponent calls you out on it, but a counter is still a counter. You can still be used to edgeguard certain recoveries or as a surprise option every once in a while. In Roy's case specifically, it may actually be more effective than many people give it credit for. If you factor in how strong the rest of his moveset is, skill players may find it too much of a risk to go for counter callouts because if they guess wrong and he throws out an attack instead, that could be even more punishing than if they just took whatever he was about to counter. So far in my Why No One Play series, I brought up a lot of characters who share the same attributes as Roy. Fast attacks, good combo game, and great mobility, but they all struggle with the same issue of being unable to close out stocks in one hit. I briefly touched on this in my Swordies video, but since Roy has such good knockback scaling for the majority of his kit, if he somehow fails to kill you early on and you're sitting at 130% or higher, one clean hit from any of his moves besides jab and down tilt will close out the stock. It's almost unheard of for Roy's opponents to survive past 150% because damn near everything kills at that point. So in last stock lasted situations, Roy has a huge advantage over most of the cast. The ability to consistently KO is a huge determining factor for a character's popularity. It's why fighters like Inkling and Sheik see very low representation despite having such good properties and movesets. It feels really unsatisfying to put in all that work to get them at a high percent and watch as your opponent kills you first while they're hovering at like 180 when they would have died ages ago if you were playing anyone else. So alongside their average to above average damage output and exceptional kill power, Roy's attacks have generous all-around frame data. Very often I see comments from low, mid, high, and top level players voicing complaints about how it feels like Roy players win games by recklessly mashing and... yeah, kinda, sort of. He's pretty mashy. But in all seriousness, Roy can be aptly described as a rushdown brawler with a sword, automatically giving him an advantage against brawlers thanks to his disjointed range, while at the same time giving him an advantage against his fellow swordies thanks to his superior frame data and great mobility. With all of this in mind, that brings me to another meaningful contributing factor to his popularity. Contrary to what his playstyle might suggest, Roy is a very comfortable and intuitive character to use, as is the same for most sword fighter characters, and why the archetype as a whole controls a lion's share of the roster's representation. To many, Roy epitomizes everything that makes sword fighters so appealing, while maintaining everything that makes the rest of the cast so appealing as well. A lot of this could be a result of the cultural landscape of Smash Ultimate's largest competitive region. Historically, North America has not only some of the game's finest players, but its players have often been viewed as more aggressive in playstyle compared to other parts of the world, specifically Japan, whose competitors approach the game more methodically and patiently. Consequently, it's no surprise that Roy, a character whose entire win condition hinges on overwhelming his opponents through sheer force, resonates with a lot of players. He and by extension his Echo Fighter Crom also gets a boost in recognition for their divergence from the tendencies of their peers. As explained in my video on them, the sword fighter archetype excels at mid-range combat, meaning they're most effective when making full use of their disjointed range, spacing attacks just far enough to where they still connect on their intended target while keeping themselves away from any attacks that their opponent might try to throw against them. With Smash 4 and Brawl being much slower in overall tempo, that was a prevailing sentiment for years. But even with an Ultimate's accelerated pace, the bulk of swordies prefer to hold on to that idea mostly out of necessity, and that dominant narrative continued throughout the game's lifespan leading up till now, with Fighters Pass 1 and 2 releasing several other characters who excel in mid-range combat like Hero, Byleth, Min Min, Sephiroth, the Aegis, and Sora. Midler's really the only exception to this, but given that she's a package deal with their alter ego Pyra, the Aegis still follow a very spacing-centric playstyle. In other words, Roy is the only sword fighter in the game who can play just as aggressively as other popular fighters like Captain Falcon, Wolf, and Mario. He embodies the best of both worlds. Smash Ultimate is possibly the first time in history that we get to see an aggressive sword fighter. I say that because Marth in Melee plays more technical than outright in-your-face rushdown. It only looks fast because Melee itself is fast. Going off of that, Smash Ultimate is by and large a game well known for its appeal as a spectator sport, as evident by its rather impressive viewership numbers despite being a very grassroots esport. For some context, Vars 3, as the number implies, is my third channel, and on my main channel Vars, I like to primarily focus on League of Legends content. Being an avid follower of both scenes, Smash Ultimate is definitively more enjoyable to watch than League. There's so much more action packed into a few minutes of the former, whereas the latter often has a lot of downtime in between major fights that can only be appreciated by those who understand the subtle macro elements of League. However, in Smash, you don't need to be a top level player to understand and more importantly enjoy what's going on. Why this matters for Roy is that he's objectively a very fun character to watch since he has to engage his opponent head on, whether he likes it or not. Therefore, as a viewer, it makes him look way more enticing to want to try out yourself compared to, for lack of a better example, Sonic, who plays very defensively. One of Ultimate's rising top players is Cola, a huge fan favorite for his explosive gameplay and dominating advantage state. It makes you want to pick up the character and play it yourself. So then you take that initial spark from seeing Roy gameplay, fan the flames with his easy to understand moves, simple win condition, and heavily overtuned moveset, and you get someone who is very intuitive and fun to play. Mind you, Roy takes a lot of skill to play at a high level. He's not actually as brain dead easy as everyone says he is. He's a glass cannon rushdown character with suboptimal survivability due to his low double jump and poor distance coverage with Blazer, but he makes a very good first impression on you. It feels satisfying playing someone with that much speed and power and a constant in-your-face playstyle, uncharacteristic of other swordies. All in all, I like to think of Roy in Smash Ultimate as what Cloud was in Smash 4, a very straightforward character who's a top tier by virtue of how generous they were when buffing his moveset during the transition, which is appreciated in light of Roy being an underwhelming character in Smash 4 and Melee, so it's nice to see him in a better spot for this game. There is one noteworthy problem he's been running into, from what I've gathered, in that Roy struggles against a lot of Fighters Pass 2 characters. Many of them are very good at punishing Melee exclusive fighters like Steve, Kazuya, and the Aegis, which is a fair point. Not being able to switch gears makes Roy an all-or-nothing character, and at top levels of play, even one mistake can be game-ending, although to be fair, he can do the same exact thing right back. Anyways, that's gonna be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed episode 2 of Why Everyone Plays. If you did, let me know in the comments down below on who you would like me to work on next. I was thinking about writing a piece for Steve, but Wolf or Palutena or Snake also sound pretty good. Leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, it really helps out the channel. Also, remember to follow me on Twitter at VarsVaram, join my Discord server, I've been trying to grow the Smash Bros section in there lately, and if you haven't yet, why not check out my previous Why Everyone Plays episode on Rob after this one. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.